So why is there a 151-foot lump of sculptured Jurassic granite plonked in the middle of this North London park? So this absolutely spectacular piece of Victorian architecture dates from 1855 and was built by the City of London. And what I find so fascinating about it is, back in the Victorian times, when you were going to build a tower like this, it was usually for a religious reason, you know, the churches to sort of have a bit of an impact in the neighbourhood, big church towers which could be seen from everywhere, or perhaps a gentleman's folly. You know, these Victorian industrialists who like to go for a bit of a medieval romance in their back garden. But this place is neither of those. It was built by the City of London, and it's a clue to what this big open space was back in the 1850s. Now, the City of London wanted to move their cattle markets from down towards Spitalfields up here, and it was called the Copenhagen Fields. They had enough room for 10,000 bullocks and 40,000 sheep to be brought here every day. The tower was built as a drovers' wayfarers marking point. So what had happened is, all the food in London, cattle would come in on hoof. So they'd arrive here alive and they'd be slaughtered in London. So right across Great Britain, shepherds and cow drivers would bring their cattle down to market. How did they find their way? So when they reached the hills of North London, they planted something called wayfarer pines, which were evergreen trees, which weren't indigenous to Britain, so you could see them from miles off. And people would follow those pines all the way to North London. And as they came down the hills, the city wanted them to know where to head. No GPS, no sat-nav back then, no Google Maps. What did you do? You're coming in from Enfield, you've just walked for a week with a whole load of sheep. You see the Copenhagen Tower in the distance. That's where we're going, lads. Hey up, boy. And you'd walk down with your sheepdog all the way through, through central London to the cattle market here. So the size of this market was, it was massive. It was actually the largest in the world when it was established. It was soon overtaken by the Chicago meat markets written about by Upton Sinclair in the book The Jungle. But it was huge, absolutely huge. And it meant there were loads of related industries around here. Copenhagen Fields was known for its stench. Not only did you have the cattle being slaughtered, but you had tripe boilers, bone boilers, glue makers, people who were taking the hooves off the cattle and turning them into all sorts of products. Cat gutters, cat gut spinners. The place stunk. On Saturday night, they'd have a meat auction and the workers would come down and buy offcuts. Tripe was a popular dish. They used to boil it up in milk and onions for Sunday lunch. Wow. It's absolutely beautiful. The clock was made by a man who lived in Clerkenwell called John Morris. It has 3 bells. Now, one would ring at 6 a.m. when the markets opened and another at 2 p.m. to announce the market had closed. So the drovers would come in from counties around London and they'd look out for a giant golden dragon on top of this building. Now, some drovers would come from as far away as Gloucestershire and they'd take a week walking here with their sheepdogs, their collie dogs. And on the way into London, the shepherds would stop off at inns and they'd leave 6pence at each inn. And when the shepherds had arrived here to sell their sheep, they would say to all their collie dogs, right, you're going to make your own way home. And a pack of collie dogs were so well trained, they'd walk from London all the way back to Gloucestershire on their own and stop off at each inn where the landlord had been given 6pence by the shepherds to give them a bit of a bone and a bit of a wash up and a place to spend the night. So the cattle market lasted up to the 1960s, and the last remnants of this actually being a place where you could buy and sell goods ended in the 1990s when Islington Council brought in a new parking regime. Up till then, it was the place to go in London if you wanted to buy a combi van, if you wanted to buy a Dormobile, a VW camper. When I was a kid, they'd be parked all the way up and down here, converted vans to live in, and people would leave a sign in the windshield saying, call this number if you want to buy my van. And it became the place to go and get second-hand vans from. How did they find their way?